Madrid, Europe's most elevated metropolis. A royal capital of history, outstanding buildings and cultural treasures. The heart of a bull in the center of the sun. And in addition to its long, rich history, the city is also modern, carefree, and full of life. Most of Spain's royal palaces are in Madrid, the capital of Spain since the 17th century, including the Palacio Real that even today serves as a royal castle. The colossal building of grey granite and limestone owes its impressive appearance to its length of 500 meters and its strategic, elevated location. Built on the site of a Moorish castle, burned to the ground and then rebuilt to an ever higher standard. Its exterior contains elements of Italian classical style, and the 2,000 rooms of its interior are dominated by late Baroque, wonderful works of art and exquisite furnishings. Huge carpets, precious frescoes and priceless crystal chandeliers adorn various of the main rooms, such as the Salon de Alabaderas, de Columnas and del Trono. Here, the Bourbon King Philippe V attempted to create a Spanish version of Versailles, and he eventually achieved his goal. But it cost his subjects dear. Apart from state occasions, the palace is always open to the public. On the southern side of the castle is Madrid's most recent cathedral, La Almudena. It was built of similar stone to that of the royal palace. The cathedral contains a combination of styles between New Gothic and Classical, and in 1993 was consecrated by the Pope. It was 200 years in construction. Legend has it that Christian conquerors discovered a picture of the Holy Virgin Mary on the Moorish city wall on the site of the present cathedral. They saw it as a sign from heaven. The modern interior is extremely high and airy. Mighty pillars divide the large room that is decorated with neo-Gothic ornamentation. The dome above the main altar is painted with golden stars on a blue background. Plain pillars provide added contrast. With its striking grey-white twin towers and black dome, the cathedral can be seen from far away. A monument of ecclesiastical power next to the worldly. Madrid also has a boulevard that has transformed this vast city into a major metropolis. It's the Gran Via. It's located between the Plaza de Espana and the Edificio Metropolis. In 1910, the city fathers created a thoroughfare through the northern area of the city. It extends for 1,300 meters. The The Gran Via compares with both flair and dimensions with the exquisite streets of Paris and New York, with splendid noble buildings along with the contemporary. Due to the foresight of the city fathers, in the 1950s, the development of this huge project began. "14 alleys in the old town disappeared. 311 houses were demolished. 62,000 cubic meters of soil were removed and 44 empty building sites reinforced with concrete. Today, everyone takes this great project for granted, and the hustle and bustle of the city's traffic supports the bold optimism of the city fathers. Today, the Gran Via is a pulsating lifeline that engulfs everything. Cultures and subcultures unite here both day and night, and the Gran Via sees it all. Puerta del Sol. This square, with its central fountain and busy roundabout, is the vital heart of old Madrid. It's also the junction for the metro. The crowded Nabal of Spain is flanked by middle-class houses and classical facades. Its name originates from a sun emblem on a former city gate. It was here that many dramas of international implication began. The bloody rebellion of the people of Madrid on the 2nd of May 1808 that was aimed against Napoleon. And in 1902, the assault on Prime Minister Mendez, the proclamation of the Republic in 1931, and later the rise to power of General Franco. Pedestrians jostle on the Puerta del Sol as they make their way to the metro stations and nearby pedestrian area, and it's from here that all the national roads have their starting point. In the 16th century, the city gate was pulled down to create more space for the expanding city. As a reminder, only a wall plaque remains. The Plaza de Cibeles is where many of the city's most important arterial roads meet. Thus, the loud roar of traffic. This grandiose area comprises several fine buildings. The huge Palacio de las Comunicaciones looks more like a cathedral than a working post office. Opposite is the Spanish Issuing Bank, housed in a building of neo-Renaissance design, and the Palacio de Linares, a former noble palace. But the central focus of attention is the Cibeles well that dates back to the 18th century. But the goddess of fertility and protector of cities is not in a suitably revered location. Those who want to venture closer to the statue must first conquer the city's traffic. Plaza Mayor, the square of all squares. From Mexico to Peru, the Plaza Mayor served as the model for the design of a central meeting point. The Casa de la Panaderia, with its abundant frescoes, is the oldest building on the square that is dominated by a statue of King Felipe on horseback. In 1922, Carlos Franco renewed the frescoes on the facade and covered it with a Baroque interpretation of the mythological marriage of earth and water. From the balcony of a former bakery, the kings watched the festivals and spectacles that took place in the square, a daily manifestation of city life. Due to the uniform height of the houses that stand closely packed together, the square emanates a simple elegance that is highlighted by the surrounding arcades. This favorite tourist rendezvous is not always as peaceful as it is today. There are no cafes or portrait painters here. Until the 19th century, the Plaza Mayor was the setting for bullfights, tournaments, religious ceremonies and executions, a square for all reasons. At the Plaza de Todas las Ventas, everything centers around the bullfight. In 1919, this huge bullfight arena was built in neo-Moorish style. A decorative red brick facade adorns this incredible building that contains 23,000 seats arranged in a large circle. Moorish door and window arches, as well as magnificent wall tiles, decorate the mecca of the controversial sport. A toreador died and an angel was born. Such inscriptions pay homage to the courageous toreadors who always guaranteed a full arena. In Madrid, the bloody spectacle is considered to be a sacred ritual, and the toreador always enjoys a high degree of respect. A number of monuments in the square recall several famous toreadors who were killed while in pursuit of their sport. Men such as Antonio Bienvenida, Joselito, and Manolete. The Rastro is the largest flea market in Spain and has more than 3,000 stalls that attract a total of 300,000 visitors. Each Sunday there's much colourful activity between the Calle de Toledo, the Calle de Embajadores and the Ronda de Toledo. Today, a vast area of second-hand goods, clothing, books and antiques. During the Middle Ages, this was a district of butchers and tanners. The name Rastro means track and is said to have originated from the bloody track of slaughtered animals that were displayed in the streets. Today, there's a flea market in nearly every European metropolis, but this one has a particularly long history and is of a remarkable size. The centre of the Plaza de Espana is a popular attraction for photographers. Beneath the watchful eyes of the great poet Miguel Cervantes, they proceed towards their destiny. Don Quixote on his famous old nag and his faithful, crafty old servant Sancho Panza, who rides astride his donkey. The monument is the result of a contest for sculptors that took place in 1915. For Napoleon's occupying army, barracks were built here, until at the beginning of the 20th century, the square was finally reopened to the public. Here there are Spanish grandmothers out for a stroll, businessmen with mobile phones, hordes of tourists, and the homeless. A place of relaxation for one and all. The green swathes and shady trees that surround these wells have witnessed many events as the people of Madrid have walked here for many centuries. In the Parque della Montana, an ancient Egyptian temple has found a new home, the Templo de Bold. For Spain's assistance with the transportation of Abu Simbel, Madrid was presented with this splendid temple. The city quarter of Lavapies has managed to maintain its provincial charm within this modern metropolis, with narrow alleys and small shops. The Barrios Bajos extends down the hill as far as the river Manzanares and originated beyond the city's medieval walls. Although there are no important buildings here, this is where much of Madrid's daily life takes place. It's like being in a small Castilian village. The Iglesia San Fernando is an unusual sight, yet little remains of it. Just a few remnants of the walls of a former monastery church that dates back to the 18th century. At the beginning of the Spanish Civil War, anti-Christians plundered this church and burnt it to the ground. Named after Christopher Columbus, fountains decorate the Plaza de Colón. The entrance to the Centro Cultural is obscured by a cascade of water. Close by is the modern twin skyscraper designed by architect Antonio Lamela, the Torres de Colón. It's covered with an intriguing array of futuristic images. A sculpture of a woman by the Colombian artist Fernando Botero lies at the foot of the towers and sends a special greeting skyward. Her nether regions. The Mercado San Miguel is, with some justification, the city's most beautiful market hall. Within this building of glass and iron, there's an amazing display of fresh food. This temple is dedicated to the taste buds and was built in the early 20th century. What the Gran Via was 100 years ago, the Paseo de la Castellana achieved at the end of the last millennium. A replica of Manhattan, the Zona Azca. A modern city district with spectacular skyscrapers and spacious streets, where chrome, glass and concrete dominate the futuristic skyline. The names of various squares have been dedicated to Spain's greatest artists, and here, sculptures and other works of art are presented in perfect harmony with the surrounding buildings. Unfortunately, the 1960s property speculators allowed the ground rent to soar out of control, with the result that only banks and large financial concerns could afford this luxurious location. The Corso La Castellana contains 6 routes and with a length of around 6 kilometers crosses the newly created city quarter. Avant-garde architecture in Madrid. The Parque del Retiro is the green lung of the city. The city's 120-hectare oasis is the Garden of Madrid, and since the First Republic has been open to the public. Far from the dirty and narrow alleys of the Old Town, here in the 17th century, King Felipe IV built a better world, a place of rest, a grand illusion. Nearly 1,000 workers were engaged in the construction of this gigantic complex. So was created a palace, a theatre, an artificial lake, and lush gardens. Whereas today anyone can relax here, in bygone times this was the sole domain of the nobility. For this extraordinary open-air stage, no expense was spared by the king. On the lake, entire naval forces were destroyed and thunderstorms and earthquakes threatened the Retiro. However, the fanciful kingdom didn't survive the century. Fortunately, the Green Park did. In front of the semicircular portico that is crowned by a huge statue of the king on horseback, some of the visitors to the park enjoy a leisurely trip by rowing boat on the artificial lake. The royal splendor of former times has managed to combine successfully with the contemporary, and today the city is no less flamboyant. Madrid, a city of historic joie de vivre.